Welcome to my presentation about how to participate in the Java platform. My name is Heather Vancura, and in case you don't know me, I'm the chairperson of the Java community process and the director of the JCP program. I've been involved with the Java platform since 2000 when I worked at Sun Microsystems. So I've been working with the Java developer community for 20 years now. And the reason why I stay in this role for so long is really because of the opportunities to interact with all of you in the Java developer community. So in my role, I have the opportunity to meet with groups of developers in countries from every region of the world, and I have an opportunity to see also the evolution of the Java technology platform and the language itself. So I live in California, still live in California in the Bay Area, and I really enjoy the opportunity to travel and learn about new cultures. I'm doing that virtually these days, and you can find me on Twitter at HeatherVC. So there have been a lot of changes over the last couple of decades when we look at the course of history of Java technology, but a few things remain the same, and that is that Java continues to be the #1 programming language in the world, and we've grown to have over 12 million Java developers running and using Java all over the world. And our focus these days is on making Java the ideal platform in the cloud. So we look at the devices where the cloud, Java is running in the cloud. We have over 30 billion virtual machines that are cloud connected at this point. And some of the things that have stayed the same, however, are around the philosophies and the way that we develop Java. And those are really the core focus of what I do in the Java community process and helping to lead that organization and bringing in Java developer feedback. So we continue to ensure that the platform is complete and that it has a high level of quality and security, but at the same time, balancing bringing in modern features and also innovation and innovative new features. Well, and the way we do that makes Java truly unique and is one of my favorite things about Java is that we do it in an open and a transparent way that ensures that we continue to have the compatibility of the platform and keep developer needs in mind and ensuring an active ecosystem that really brings in players from all over the Java community. And that is enabled by the things that we require and maintain and continue to nurture within the Java community process. And this year in 2020, we're celebrating 25 years of Java. So as we've celebrated a lot of success, as I talked about the stats that we see right now with Java technology, what we look at within the Java community process is looking towards the future. So how do we continue to ensure that Java continues to be successful? So part of how we do it is sharing with you what is the JCP. So a lot of developers who've used Java even for a very long time don't realize that Java is governed by the Java community process organization. So I'm the chairperson of the JCP, and I also have a small staff that works with me to administer the program. That's the program management office. And we have an executive committee that's serves like a board to give guidance as well as vote on all of the projects that go through the JCP. So the executive committee is elected by our membership every year. But the real work of the Java community process, and where I have the largest percentage of this graph, is showing you that the real work is done by the membership. So by people who are members of the JCP, they work on projects called JSRs, and every JSR has a leader, call it the specification lead, and then also expert group members and contributors. So those are made up of Java developers and companies and organizations who use Java who are members of the JCP. So everything in the Java and Java x.star namespace is governed by the Java community process. So as I mentioned, our projects are organized by JSRs. You've probably heard the term JSR. So a JSR is a single version of a Java specification. And Java is unique in the way that it is developed in that a JSR is the project, but every JSR has not just the specification, but it's the specification, a reference implementation, so that's the code, and a TCK, the compatibility kit. So those things are required by the JCP before any project can be declared final. And every JSR is voted on by the executive committee. That's the primary role of the executive committee, is to ratify that JSR and say that it's ready to go final and then can be used in projects with projects in production. So before a JSR is final, you can only use that code and specification for projects in development. Once it's final, you can use that code in development. And the 3 deliverables that are required by the JCP really enable that active ecosystem that I talked about. So we have the specification, the reference implementation, and the TCK. So the specifications telling us that you can build an implementation. The reference implementation is the code that implements that specification. And then the 3rd deliverable, the TCK, that's telling us if the specification is ambiguous and if the RI conforms to the specification and therefore passes the TCK. But then independent implementers can also take that specification, develop their own code and run it against the TCK and declare it as a compatible implementation of that Java specification. So the 3 deliverables really work together to ensure not only an active ecosystem and choice for not only developers, but for customers, but ensure that we continue to have that compatibility that's been so key to the success of Java. So every project goes through the same development cycle, whether if it's the Java platform itself or a standalone optional package JSR. JSRs can be led by any full member of the JCP, and members also serve as not only serve as spec leads, but also as expert group members and contributors on JSRs. And as I mentioned earlier, every JSR gets voted on by the executive committee before it can be approved and used in shipping products. And it's an international effort. We see participation in the standardization of Java from all over the world. And not only from developers all over the world, but from different types of developers. We have companies participating in the JCP, but also nonprofit and open source groups, Java user groups, and individual developers. When the JCP first started, the primary source of our members came from corporations, but now we see the majority of our members are actually individual developers. While we continue to have corporations who are members of the JCP and participating, the majority of our members are currently individual developers who are passionate about the program. And because of that, I decided to do a little bit of research into our membership and ask, why are these individuals participating in this effort? So in addition to the jobs that you have every day, as well as your personal hobbies and things that you like to do in your free time, why do you choose to participate in the JCP in addition to all of the other things going on in your life? And really the 2 main reasons that it came down to were, first of all, it was either helping to advance developers' careers, to be seen as an expert within their local community and the broader Java community. And then also just wanting to be part of the citizen society of Java. That's one of my favorite quotes from Heinz Kibbutz. Joining the JCP is like being a Java citizen. So there's citizenship factor of being part of the thing that ensures the continued success of Java, but also being able to participate in the annual executive committee elections. And the elections are going on now. They happen every year in the September through November timeframe. The members elect the executive committee. We have currently 20 members on the executive committee. I'm showing you a picture of the last time that we met face-to-face, which was in October of 2019. So here's a picture from our face-to-face meeting that was held at the Twitter headquarters. Twitter is one of our EC members. And we have a balance of executive committee members as well. So here we probably have more than 20 people because sometimes an EC member will send multiple representatives, excuse me. But we have a balance in the executive committee as well, where we see not only companies who are participating as an executive committee member, but also nonprofit and open source groups, Java user groups, and individual developers. So we have a couple of Java user groups serving on the EC at the moment, and 2 individual developers representing the needs of those constituencies in our community. And within the JCP, as I explained to you how it works, we continue to maintain that we need open standards and open source. So the JCP provides and continues to ensure that we have that. So we have Java developed as a standard. We have the specification, and then the projects are also developed in open source. So within the JCP, we have open standards and open source, and we need both. And that's an overview of what the JCP is and how it works. I like to give an example of really the main project that's being developed within the JCP right now is the Java platform itself. So as I mentioned, it's developed in open source. So it's an open source implementation. And that for Java SE, the reference implementation is developed within OpenJDK. So Java SE is a JSR within the JCP. Every version of the Java platform is a JSR. And then underneath that JSR are a collection of JEPs, Java enhancement proposals that are developed in OpenJDK. So OpenJDK organizes their projects as JEPs, Java enhancement proposals. And then once a collection of Java enhancement proposals or JEPs are ready to be targeted for a release, they're targeted towards a JSR, which is under the purview of the JCP, and the executive committee would then vote to ratify that JSR before that project can become final. So we have the Java SE platform. The last major release of the Java SE platform developed through the JCP is Java SE 15. That's available as of September 2020. And with the release of Java 9, we introduced modularity into the Java platform, and that enabled us to move to a faster release cadence. So what we have now is a new release of Java every 6 months. And that enables us to, like I talked about before, really look towards the next generation of Java developers and be able to attract the newer developers who are often using other technologies as well as Java and are accustomed to having new features and technologies at a more rapid pace. So that allows us to introduce also new features and functionality into Java every 6 months rather than having to wait multiple years in between releases. And we also, around that same time, starting with JDK 9, introduced into the Java ecosystem this idea of long-term support releases. So that's not a new concept. It's new to the Java developer community, whereby we will have releases every 6 months, but every 3 years, that one release will be considered or designated a long-term support release. And again, because we talked about there's multiple choices of implementation in the community, what we've seen is that many other members of the community also are offering long-term support releases. So Java 11 was the first official long-term support release, and Java 17 will be the next long-term support release. Also around that time, Oracle contributed into OpenJDK many of their proprietary or commercial features that they had previously offered only to their customers in the Oracle JDK. So that was another way to introduce more innovation and features gradually over time, starting after the Java 9 release. So I'd like to go through a few slides that show you how this change really affects how the releases are developed. So with Java 9, like I talked about in 2017, we had a major release of Java, which was picked one major project, which for Java 9, that was Project Jigsaw or Modularity. But in addition to that project that we waited until it was ready to release Java 9 in 2017, there were over 100 other new features introduced with Java 9. And that was very typical for Java platform releases prior up until that time. You would have many, many new features to digest within each platform release of Java, and it took quite a bit of time to migrate in between versions of Java. So starting around that time, we moved to that faster release cadence. So 6 months after we had Java 9, there was a release of JDK 10 in 2018. So that was the first feature release. And what happened was whatever's ready to be released at that 6-month period mark is what goes into that release. So now you can see within OpenJDK, there's an organized page where you can find the schedule as well as features that are targeted to be part of that release. So with JDK 10, 6 months after the release of Java 9, we had 12 new features put into the next release of Java 10. So probably one of the most popular for developers was the var type inference, local variable type inference. So that was really exciting to be able to have that feature and functionality available in Java. And then 6 months later came Java 11. 17 Java enhancement proposals were put into Java 11. So more features than with Java 10, and that isn't because it was a long-term support release, which it is a long-term support release. But if you look at the features that went into that, you can see that some of the features that went in there were some of the features that Oracle had contributed into OpenJDK, like flight recorder, for instance, shows up here, and also ZGC in an experimental phase. So ZGC is a scalable low latency garbage collector. And Java 12 came along last year in March 2019, again, keeping to that schedule. So exactly at 6 months is when the Java platform is released. As you can see, 8 features went into that, 8 JEPs. So it's a much more digestible release, easier to migrate in between versions for developers. So can get onto a cadence where you're constantly evaluating the changes that are being made to that release, as well as keeping track of the features that are targeted to be part of it. One of the other interesting things that happened around this time is that we introduced this concept of preview features. So here in Java 12, you can see that switch expressions is available as a preview feature. That means it is not turned on by default in the release. You would get it when you download it, but you have to go in and turn on that functionality. And we're looking for more feedback on these features that are designated as preview before they're available as regular features. And it might be in preview in a release for a couple of different iterations of the platform. So with Java 13 in September 2019, again, switch expressions is available as a preview feature, also text blocks. So this is a way to get those new features and functionality put into the platform. And again, in a more digestible manner. Kind of in keeping with the way software is developed these days in a continuous delivery format. And Java 14 was released March 2020. 15 JEPs went into Java 14. And Java 15 is the release that's available now. So as of last month, when you go to download the last release of Java to be able to use in production code, you would get Java 15. You can see also under the features for Java 15 that there's JEPs that are being proposed to be deprecated. So deprecate RMI activation for removal. That's also included as a review of what's in the release. So we're already working on Java 16. That's available as JSR 391 on jcp.org. And there's a variety of JEPs there that are targeted already to be part of that platform release that would be coming out in March of 2021. A couple of them have to do with the migration from Mercurial to Git and also migrating the code base to GitHub. So one of the most common questions I get now, once I've walked through how you can keep track of the platform as it evolves, are what happened to the feature code named projects. Those also continue to be developed within OpenJDK. So I'm going to highlight a couple of those now for you here. I've picked just a few of the projects that are being developed within OpenJDK. So what happens now is that these are the projects that the community is working on. So the contributors within OpenJDK, and as parts of these projects are ready, they'll be put forward as JEPs and then targeted for a platform release, where it used to be that you would pick one of these projects and you would make it the target for the next platform release as that feature, and then you would wait until that entire project or feature was developed, and then you would introduce the next version of the platform. Now the way it works is as things are worked within these projects and parts of them are ready to be integrated into Java enhancement proposals and migrated into the mainline for a JSR platform release, they're put forward incrementally over time. Again, accelerating the innovation on a more predictable and reliable schedule for developers, but also for customers. And the priorities that are put forward in terms of how these projects will be worked, in terms of the contributors are assigned to work on these projects or who volunteer to work on these projects. Security is going to continue to be a #1 priority, but also some of the things that are being worked on in these projects are increasing density, improving startup time, improving predictability, and simplifying serviceability and profiling, while at the same time always continuing to look at how we can improve developer productivity and ensure compatibility of the platform. So these are some of the projects that you can take a look at within OpenJDK. If they're of particular interest to you, I would suggest going and checking out the project on OpenJDK, and they have their own wikis as well as mailing lists and dashboards where you can check out what's happening. Some of these projects even have their own project specific builds that you can download and check out in terms of the changes that are coming. So Project Valhalla is one of the main projects that's being worked on and exciting for developers. And Project Valhalla is looking at value types for the Java platform. Also, Project Portola. So as I mentioned earlier in the talk, the Java platform, we're looking specifically at making Java the first choice for deployments in the cloud. So Project Portola is looking at Java in a world of containers. I mentioned Project ZGC earlier in terms of a project that was open sourced and available in the Java platform already. So that project, new things will continue to come out of Project ZGC, garbage collector, and Project Panama. So obviously we all know that big data and machine learning is a huge space in software development, and there's a lot of improvements that can be made to make Java more attractive in that environment. So within Project Panama, what they're looking at is a safe, simple replacement for JNI, looking at improving Java in a native environment. And Project Loom is a new not a new project, but it was looking at an incremental improvement to the concurrency model. It has a big idea of being able to take millions of fibers and spawn them into a single JVM instance. And finally, Project Amber. So Project Amber is a collection of small language improvements. A couple of the ones that I called out that are being introduced over the last few versions of the Java platform are switch expressions, pattern matching, and records, for example. So things will continue to come out of Project Amber that make language improvements to Java. So you can download early access builds. That's another way that you can keep track of what's coming next with Java. If you go to jdk.java.net, you can download early access builds. You could also get the ready for use versions of the platform. So as I mentioned, JDK 15 is the latest version that's available now, but you can already get early access versions of JDK 16. So every couple of weeks, there's a new build of the version of Java that we're working on. So that's 16 currently. So that means you can download the early access build and test it out against your applications to monitor what changes you would need to make or any dependencies that you might have. And then there are also some project specific builds that I mentioned earlier. So that's where you can get them, for instance, Loom, Panama, and Valhalla. If you're interested in being a contributor to OpenJDK, you can also do that on openjdk.java.net. There's a process there for becoming an OpenJDK contributor, or you can just follow OpenJDK on Twitter if you're interested in seeing what new JEPs are being introduced. Another way that we're looking towards the future is looking at how Java developers can engage with the next generation of developers through an initiative called Java in Education, bringing Java to the next generation of developers, really forming a collection of resources for leaders within the Java user group communities to reach out to their academic communities. So whether that's universities or secondary schools, and providing them with some tips as well as ways to share with each other some of the most effective ways that they've been able to engage with more junior developers or developers who are learning Java in their local communities. So we're making a collection of resources that are available to you. If you're interested in getting involved in that initiative, you can go to jcp.org/Java in Education. Like I said, we have some resources available now. But we're going to have more resources available over time, particularly starting in November in the first part of the year. This is a great opportunity now that most communities and institutional organizations are meeting virtually. It makes it a little bit easier to connect rather than having to travel to the university. You can connect virtually with some of the students and provide your experience working in industry and share with them how you're using Java in your job day to day. Along with that, we're offering to user group community members, they can offer a discount for certifications if they want to get certified on Java 11. So there's training as well as certification. There's the Java Programming Complete course that leads to certification. And then there's also now a completely free course, which is called the Java Explorer. So that's a really great opportunity to offer to students who want to learn Java or maybe have learned other technologies and want to learn how to use Java. So this is a course that offers 6 hours of free training, could be a little bit longer if they take longer, gives them a badge and kind of a preparatory step for going on to certification. Now we've also partnered with the Oracle Academy to be able to share some of the resources that they have available to all of their institutions and provide a pathway for community members who want to offer a workshop in a box to some of their local community members as well. So Java coding courses are available that way, kind of a train the trainer concept, as well as Oracle Academy offers a way for you to look up and see if your local institutions are members, and if so, be able to work together with them to provide some of that industry knowledge that oftentimes both faculty as well as students are eager to learn about how this technology that they're learning about in the classroom environment can be transitioned into industry or development use. So we continue also to focus on the JCP as an organization. And I'd like to share with you just for a couple minutes how we changed the organization to keep pace with the needs of the developer community and with the changes that we're making in the technology. So I've explained to you what is the JCP, what are the technologies that are being developed now and where we're putting our focus. And I'd just like to share with you a little bit about how the JCP as an organization works. So we have rules, a process document, and a membership document. We call that, we can refer to that as our constitution of how it works. So some of the things that we've done to adapt to the changing needs and the changing way that software is developed is that we ensure within the rules and guidance from the JCP that everything is developed transparently. So transparency is really key. All the things that I just went through with you in terms of being able to download early access builds, review features and things on the wiki and the mailing list, everything is available and transparent to you. You can view that without being a member of any particular community. It's available to you as a developer, and we mandated that within the JCP. In addition, we've looked at the executive committee of the JCP. So we've resized the executive committee based on the current scope of the JCP, focused on the Java platform, and also merged. We used to have multiple executive committees. So it's one executive committee resized. We'll complete that size of the EC, the reduction in the size of the EC this year in 2020. And then we also looked at how we can ensure more participation, continued participation from a wide variety of developers. And also, of course, we need to make changes in order to ensure that the JSRs that go through the JCP can move faster to keep up with that 6-month release cadence. So starting with the membership, we've eliminated barriers for membership and also introduced membership levels. So that means that now we have more than just a one type of membership in the JCP. And we also eliminated any fees and made everything available to be done electronically. So that makes it a little bit more accessible. And we have 3 membership levels. A membership for individuals. I said that's our primary membership at this point. The majority of our members are associate members at this point. We also introduced partner membership. That's available primarily for Java user groups. And then a full membership. So a full member can lead a JSR, serve on an expert group, and vote in the executive committee. And that's primarily for companies, but also Java user groups who are official certified nonprofits, as well as some individuals, can also qualify as full members. And in order to be able to move faster and through the JCP, we streamlined the JSR development cycle, and it's really more in keeping with the way software is developed today. So when the JCP was originally developed, software was developed in more of a waterfall cycle, and now it's being developed in open source in a more agile, continuous delivery way. So we've modified the JCP process to allow for that, for a longer open review, but still have that balance of the vote by the executive committee at the end of the process before the code can be declared as final and that JSR be used by the spec lead as well as by any other member of the Java community who wants to use that code in their production projects. So we've modified that. And then in keeping with that, I think with the new release cycle, also the way you even migrate in between Java versions can now be more in keeping with that style of software development as well. And we'll continue to evolve the JCP. That's one of the roles of the executive committee. We do that work in the open. We do it through a JSR. Our last JSR streamlined the JCP program, and we finished that in December 2018 and had a maintenance release of that JSR in 2019. And if you want to follow along on the things we talk about in the JCP, you can do that via jcp.org. And the result is that the JCP is more open than it ever was before. And it leaves us with the final part of my presentation, which is working together, we can achieve more. And so when you decide how you want to participate in the Java platform and the evolution of it and its future, you can do that as an individual. But what we found is working as a team it's better. You can work either with members of your local Java user group or with from members of your team at your employer, helping each other, teaching each other, and working with each other. And in large part, we've found great success over the last several years working with Java user groups all over the world in helping with the adoption efforts of Java, with the education efforts. Now, as we're looking at talking about Java in education, working on that initiative with us, what Java user groups have found is that being a member of the JCP and participating in these activities makes their community stronger, as well as gives them more visibility within the global Java community. So I'm going to summarize now the tips on things that you can do either on your own or with a member of your group, Java user group or group of employers at your company. First of all, participate in OpenJDK, download those early access builds. You can work on that together and share your feedback. You can share your feedback on the adoption mailing list within OpenJDK. There's an adoption group, and there's also a quality group where you can share some feedback. When you go to download the early access builds, this is what it's going to look like now. So as I mentioned earlier, you go to jdk.java.net, click on JDK 16, you'll get the early access builds. As I mentioned, they come out every couple of weeks. You'll find release notes there, as well as changes and issues that have been addressed in that build, as well as the open source builds that are available there for the platform of your choice. Within the quality group, there is an outreach group. So as you are downloading those early access builds and testing them out against your applications, you may find some dependencies. And a great way to start to get involved within the Java community is to contribute to those projects to help expedite getting those dependencies to the next version of Java along with you. So the Quality Outreach Group is a collection of free and open source projects working on the early access OpenJDK builds. I have a couple of examples here. Eclipse Collections and Apache Maven are a couple of the projects that are involved in that effort, but there are over 100 different projects involved there. And I think this is really a great way to start to get involved within the community, because what you're going to find on the Quality Outreach Project is a wiki. And here you'll have the list of all the projects, as well as the contact information, and then also their status for getting on to being ready in green. So it indicates they're actively testing to be ready on the next version of OpenJDK. So right now on the table, you'll see they're tracking whether they're available as green for 11, 14, 15, as well as 16, which is now in development. Or you can pick a JSR. So there are several JSRs that you can pick to work on. Every JSR has a page that looks like this one on jcp.org. And there you'll find links to the drafts, as well as links to the issue tracker and links to the public discussion. So tip number one, I have 5 tips for you. Pick the thing that you want to work on. So whether that's the early access builds, a project within the quality outreach program, working with your educational community, or picking a JSR that's being developed through the JCP, pick that project. And then communicate. So communicate with each other, the group of people that you're working with, but also communicate with the project lead. This is a really key step that oftentimes doesn't happen. So any project you want to work on, make sure that you introduce yourself on that mailing list. As I talked about, transparency is really key, but it's not just a one-way street for consumption. You should be contributing to that list. Introduce yourself, what your experience is, and what you'd like to provide and bring to the project. And then decide on action together. Either propose some actions you want to take or ask for some ideas from the project lead. These are some of the steps that I've found members of the community to have the most success with. Reading early versions and giving feedback on specifications and Java docs is super helpful. Probably the thing that we could use the most. In addition, downloading and providing feedback on those early access reference builds or implementations. Also, sharing about updates to the technology, or when there's an early access build out, or when something's final, evangelizing it or sharing about it within your local community, either by giving a talk or just sharing on Twitter or other social media what you've learned about the technology. And always remember to follow up. So any feedback that you have, share it in the appropriate forums. So there's issue trackers that you can share as well, where you can share as well as public discussion forums. So there are lists that you can join and share feedback. So if you've done the work of downloading an early access build, make sure that you're sharing the feedback that you found. And then in closing, remember that you can have fun. So participating in hack days or workshops, whether they're virtual or in person, you're going to be having fun meeting and working with other Java developers, maybe even meeting some new people. And what you'll find over time is that your network of contacts, as well as your knowledge in Java, is going to grow exponentially. So, and you're also going to find that you're going to grow a lot of those harder to nurture soft skills around communication and collaboration. So working on these projects can be a great way to enhance your career, as well as build your skill and knowledge base. So we need you in order to make the Java platform stronger and to continue the success of the Java platform and the Java community. So I hope today you've learned some ways that you'd like to become more engaged and contribute. You can follow the JCP online at any of these different social media forums. And if you have questions that I didn't answer here, you can find me either on Twitter or via my email. So on Twitter, I'm Heather VC, and in email, it's heather@jcp.org. Thanks for your time, and I look forward to sharing more with you on social media and answering your questions.